The man utilized his technical talents to conceal the stranger that was persistently obstructing his parking place. Upon entering the parking lot, he was somewhat aback to see that despite his repeated cautions, the automobile was still there. His head began to spin as soon as he felt something inside of him crack. Subsequently, his hard-bitten mouth softened, and a broad smile appeared on his face. He was perfectly aware of how to make this man regret ever parking here. Angry Aussie Gam 3R, a Redditor, has had enough. Even after leaving many warnings on the offending vehicle, the driver persisted in parking him there. Unfortunately for the careless motorist, this cunning Redditor knew just how to use a secret weapon he had on hand to carry out his outrageous plan and make the impolite man pay. As you can see, this Redditor was a mechanic as well. He liked to tinker inside automobiles when he was a youngster. Nothing pleased him more than lifting the hood to see what drove them. He found the gears and bolts to be beautiful, and he needed very little justification to collect his tools and enter. When our vindictive Redditor reached adulthood, he had successfully finished his apprenticeship and earned his certificate in auto maintenance. He was an expert in all facets of his profession and had acquired the knowledge and abilities necessary to set the stage for the ultimate retaliation he would carry out years later. If only the careless motorist had realized the extent of Angry Aussie Gam 3R's willingness to go. He occupied an apartment building with subterranean parking and designated parking spaces. The arrangement was straightforward. Each apartment had access to 2 parking spaces, which were arranged in 2 rows, one in front of the other. This meant that in order to guarantee that one automobile was never positioned up against the wall, precise cooperation would be required. This careless renter would frequently park there, essentially parking our Redditor in the spot that he would leave available for guests. This was a very frustrating sight that Angry Aussie Gam 3R has encountered several times. The issue was that he was unsure of the specific identity of the perpetrator because of the vastness of the apartment complex. He tried using non-violent means at first, but things soon got out of hand. Angrily, Aussie Gam 3R was getting set to spend the weekend away from home with his pals one Saturday afternoon. As he approached his vehicle, he noticed that the impolite motorist had once more parked in front of it. Just the week before, he'd written a nice letter to the motorist and stuck it on his windshield. It appeared that his request to stop pulling his automobile in on Friday afternoons had not reached its intended recipient. Thus, he began to consider his next course of action. To see if they might assist, he gave the building management a call. He described the issue calmly. Clearly, having had too much to drink the previous evening, this impolite motorist neglected to relocate the car by Saturday morning, completely unaware of the trouble he had given the parking space owner. He was growing more and more irate as he spoke, but the building management was not going to assist him. He then phoned the towing business, but they were also unable to assist him. Because of the height limit, they wouldn't be able to drive a truck up to the 3rd floor parking lot. Our Redditor then saw a crimson cloud fall upon him, and he knew he would have to take matters into his own hands. Aussie Gam 3R became enraged and began to plot. He laughed merrily. This bold man was going to regret parking in his area. He intended to exact the most stunning punishment on him, so he phoned his pals, and while they drove to his garage to get the most valuable instrument in his profession, they kept seeing the angry expression on the impolite man's face. Our Redditor mechanic grabbed his 6 toughest buddies and his car positioning jacks. They began to push once he firmly fastened the jacks to every tire of the offending automobile. He felt the automobile rise smoothly thanks to the hydraulics. The automobile was moved around until it faced the other direction, with the jack's wheels easily handling the tremendous weight. He wasn't finished, though. Then, using all of their might, he and his companions maneuvered the automobile to the opposite side of the parking lot. It was ideal, however, there was no parking bay here. They managed to wedge the automobile in with its nose against the wall since there was a load-supporting beam with a narrow gap behind it. Anger-filled Aussie Gam 3R said with delight, "Good luck finding your car," as he stepped back to survey his creation. After finishing his work, he left for his friend's weekend getaway, but the entire time, he couldn't stop smiling. If and when the daring man ultimately discovered his automobile in such a precarious situation, what would he do? He was eager to return and learn more. The offending automobile was, predictably, still where they had left it when our jolly prankster came back from his excursion, but the front wheels had been rotated. Anxious Australian GAM3R and his companions couldn't stop chuckling at the image of the man's perplexed expression upon discovering his automobile was missing, his annoyance upon discovering its location, and, most hilarious of all, his fruitless attempt to relocate it. The inconsiderate man's inability to relocate his automobile came as no surprise. It was only a foot from the wall, and the distance between the automobile and the pillar was also just about a foot. However, it was vanished by the time our resourceful technician checked for it again the next day, and he never saw it again. Nobody knows how the automobile was ultimately able to be forced out of its little slot, but one thing is certain, according to Angry Aussie GAM3R, the tenant will definitely think twice the next time he parks in someone else's parking bay. He chose a mechanic, of all people, to irritate, and he had the tools and knowledge to carry out the most gratifying parking retaliation Reddit has ever seen. People adored Angry Aussie GAM3R's intricate prank, which he shared on Reddit, and they couldn't believe he had pulled off. Everybody has considered taking vengeance on careless and impolite drivers, which is why Angry Aussie GAM3R's tale of retribution was much more fulfilling. His remark went viral in a pro-revenge topic, and soon people everywhere were laughing merrily. The clever execution and inventiveness of the Redditor mechanic won over many admirers. Above all, he was commended for his ability to make his argument clearly and non-violently. Other commentators, on the other hand, pointed out that Angry Aussie GAM3R would face theft charges and questioned if it was legal for him to transfer someone else's car. In response, he said, "My research indicates that the only ways I could be charged are if I had moved the car with the intent to sell, lend, or give it to someone else, or if I had unlawfully obtained entry inside. If I had moved it off the property, the situation would be more hazy, but as it stands, I just acquired access to my car. However, do you believe the impolite driver has learned his lesson?"